Excellent. All right. So we're going through the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and we're on page 163, the beginning of chapter 7, the Master and Vijay Goswami. It's Thursday, December 14th, 1882. So 101 years before I graduated high school. All right. It was afternoon, and Sri Ramakrishna was sitting on his bed after a short noonday rest. Vijay, Balaram, M, and a few other devotees were sitting on the floor with their faces toward the master. They could see the sacred river Ganges through the door. Since it was winter, all were wrapped up in warm clothes. Vijay had been suffering from colic and had brought some medicine with him. Vijay was a paid preacher in the Sadharan Brahmo Samaj, but there were many things about which he could not agree with the Samaj authorities. He came from a very noble family of Bengal, noted for its piety and other spiritual qualities. Advaita Goswami, one of his remote ancestors, had been an intimate companion of Sri Chaitanya. Wow, that would be amazing. That's like going to Dakshineshwar and meeting, not Dakshineshwar, Kamarpakor, and meeting relatives of Thakur there. And Holy Mother's relatives too, in Jairambati. Thus, the blood of a great lover of God flowed in Vijay's veins. As an adherent of the Brahmo Samaj, Vijay no doubt meditated on the formless Brahman, but his innate love of God, inherited from his distinguished ancestors, had merely been waiting for the proper time to manifest itself in all its sweetness. Thus, Vijay was irresistibly attracted by the God-intoxicated state of Sri Ramakrishna and often sought his company. He would listen to the master's words with great respect, and they would dance together in ecstasy of divine love. Oh my gosh. Wow, can you just imagine that you got to dance with Thakur, Sri Ramakrishna, in ecstasy nonetheless? Of course, it would be ecstasy. What else could it be? Just it's talked about the way that he moved and the atmosphere, how he just seemed to move the air with him when he danced. It's an amazing visual there. Let me turn on a light here. I know it looks light on the screen, but that's because Apple is compensating. All right. So he would listen to the master's words with great respect, and they would dance together in ecstasy of divine love. It was a weekday. Generally, devotees came to the master in large numbers on Sundays, and hence those who wanted to have intimate talks with him would visit him on the weekdays. A boy named Vishnu, living in Aryadaha, had recently committed suicide by cutting his throat with a razor. The talk turned to him. Master, oh, I felt very badly when I heard of the boy's passing away. He was a pupil in a school and he used to come here. He would often say to me that he couldn't enjoy worldly life. He had lived with some relatives in the western provinces, and at that time used to meditate in solitude, in the meadows, the hills, and forests. He told me he had visions of many divine forms. Perhaps this was his last birth. He must have finished most of his duties in previous birth. The little that had been left undone was perhaps finished in this one. One must admit the existence of tendencies inherited from previous births. There is a story about a man who practiced the Sava Sadhana. He worshipped the Divine Mother in a deep forest. First, he saw many terrible visions. Finally, a tiger attacked and killed him. Another man, happening to pass and seeing the approach of the tiger, had climbed a tree. Afterward, he got down and found all the arrangements for the worship at hand. He performed some purifying ceremonies and seated himself on the corpse. No sooner had he done a little japa than the Divine Mother appeared before him and said, "My child, I am very much pleased with you. Accept a boon from me." He bowed low at the lotus feet of the goddess and said, "May I ask you one question, Mother?" "I'm speechless with amazement at your action. The other man who worked so hard to get the ingredients for your worship and tried to propitiate you for such a long time, but you didn't condescend to show him your favor. And I, who don't know anything of worship, who have done nothing, who have neither devotion nor worship, nor knowledge nor love, and who haven't practiced any austerities, am receiving so much of your grace. The Divine Mother said with a laugh, my child, you don't remember your previous births. For many births you tried to propitiate me through austerities. As a result of those austerities, all these things have come to hand, and you have been blessed with my vision. Now, ask me your boon. It's quite wonderful. This is all the more, all of these things about previous lives and about samskaras and karma, they're not there to really tell us about some hidden science of Vedanta. I'm going to put everybody on mute here just a moment. They're not there to tell us and anything that's true in and of itself. Karma, rebirth, all of these things are theories. And the reason that they're theories, the reason that the scriptures share them, is because they give you the power to climb forward. What you're doing at this moment is a samskara for tomorrow. And so you can change your samskaras, you can change your karmas. Karmas are not, the theory of karma is not there to tell you why you are trapped where you are. The theory of karma is there to show you that you have the power to transcend it, that your karma is in your hands. You build it. You want a beautiful tomorrow, then live wisely today. There's a wonderful scripture in the book of Isaiah where I think it's Isaiah who has an angel who hands him a scroll and tells him to eat it. And he eats one scroll and he says, oh, it was bitter. It was sweet in the mouth. It was wonderfully delicious. But as soon as he swallowed it, it was bitter in the stomach. And then he gave him a second scroll and told him to eat that. And he ate that one and it was bitter in the mouth, terrible tasting. But when he swallowed it, it was very sweet in the stomach. And I always understood that to be that live for the good of tomorrow, not for the good of today. So don't, the pleasant and the good, the pleasant and the good are two different things. I think that's a Katha Upanishad. I'll have to look that up. But the pleasant and the good, right? The pleasant is the thing that's satisfying in the moment, but may not be good for tomorrow. Like any of your addictions or some of the other pleasures. It's like they're very happy in the moment, but afterward there's a price to pay for them. And so the good, on the other hand, it may be difficult to do now. It may involve some self-control, may involve some discipline, some renunciation, some discernment, which, may not be fun, may not be the fun thing to do. But for the future, for your development, it's very good. It's very good for you, and so we have to live with an awareness in the moment of how our action in this moment is going to ripple ahead. We don't it's a careful game because we want to be present only in the moment. And if you are actually fully present in the moment, that will take care of this anyway, because this will come naturally to you. But there should be some understanding, like think about the things that you're doing and think about how will they affect tomorrow me. Tomorrow, that's something I used to actually practice back when I was struggling with a certain subset of things. I would say, now, if I don't do this today, will I feel better tomorrow? Or would I feel better tomorrow if I did that today? And, make those kinds of decisions. And that's how you take charge. Let's see. There he is. We were locking Greg out of the, we were keeping Greg locked in the waiting room. So these notions of previous lives and births and how they've affected us, they're nice stories, but there's nothing you can do about it. And that it's not all that helpful because here you are. And so obviously karma is not there to tell you about why you're here. Karma is there to put the reins in your hand, to remind you you're responsible for the way you are And by knowing that, you are empowered to make decisions that will make tomorrow a better day, that will increase your love for God. So any practice that you do is giving you good samskaras, so that maybe one day, hopefully you won't have to watch a guy get eaten by a lion in order to do your worship, but but who knows? At least it'll be a good outcome for you. Now ask me your boon, the mother says. A devotee, I'm frightened to hear of the suicide. Master, suicide is a heinous sin, undoubtedly. A man who kills himself must return again and again to this world and suffer its agony. But I don't call it suicide if a person leaves his body after having the vision of God. There is no harm in giving up one's body that way. After attaining knowledge, some people give up their bodies. After the gold image has been cast in the clay mold, you may either preserve the mold or break it. So it's an interesting exception there, that if the body, it can be said this way, Thakur can say these things because the purpose of life is your realization, your seeing God. That's what it's for. And if you are seeing God, if you have fulfilled the purpose of the body, you've had your realization, that these things, you grok these things, not intellectually, but structurally. You grok them, them, you see God regularly. You commune with the beloved regularly, not just in prayer, but actually in presence, like Swami Brahmananda. I want you to understand that this is the real deal, so that nobody feels like they have permission to run off and end it for themselves tonight. It's like, that's not where we're going with this. But that, the purpose of your life, the very purpose that you're here, that you've taken up a body, is for the knowledge of what you are, and to touch that divine bliss, and to learn to commune with the beloved through giving up the wrong notions of yourself and the wrong notions of what you are. And once that's been done, the body can be given up. The purpose has been fulfilled. That's why it was there, and now it's over. But then he brings on that part too, that you have the choice of whether you destroy the mold or not. Ramakrishna was actually all the sages, when they tell these kinds of stories, are always very pleased when they find a disciple who's willing to hold on to their body in order to serve others, to help others. They're always very happy to find that. And one time Ramakrishna really scolded Swamiji, because Swamiji, his one boon that he wanted was that he would have God realization. And Thakur scolded him for saying that. He's like, "Oh, you mean person, how selfish of you. I thought you, of all people, would long for the realization of everyone and not just your own." And, really laid into him. And so that's the ideal. The ideal is not to get caught up in our own selfish anything, even our own realization, but to really love and to really, really pour out our hearts for everyone, for all things, and to make that our practice and our goal, and let the realization come as it comes, that our desire is to love and to serve. That's the higher ideal, the highest ideal, actually. Many years ago, a young man about 20 used to come to the temple garden from Baranagar. His name was Gopal Sen. In my presence, he used to experience such intense ecstasy that Hriday had to support him for fear he might fall to the ground and break his limbs. That young man touched my feet one day and said, "Sir, I shall not be able to see you anymore. Let me bid you goodbye." A few days later, I learned that he had also given up his body. It is said that there are 4 classes of human beings: the bound, those aspiring after liberation, the liberated, and the ever perfect. This world is like a fishing net. Men are the fish, and God, whose Maya has created this world, is the fisherman. When the fish are entangled in the net, some of them try to tear through its meshes in order to get their liberation. They are like the men striving after liberation. But by no means all of them escape. Only a few jump out of the net with a loud splash, and then people say, ah, there goes a big one. In like manner, 3 or 4 men attain liberation. Again, some fish are so careful by nature that they are never caught in the net, and some beings of the ever-perfect class, like Narada, are never entangled in the meshes of worldliness. Most of the fish are trapped, but they are not conscious of the net and of their imminent death. No sooner are they entangled than they run headlong, net and all, trying to hide themselves in the mud. But they don't make the least effort to get free. On the contrary, they go deeper and deeper into the mud. These fish are like bound men. They are still inside the net, but they think they are quite safe there. A bound creature is immersed in worldliness, in woman and gold, lust and greed, having gone deep into the mire of degradation. But still, he believes he is quite happy and secure. The liberated and the seekers after liberation look on the world as a deep well. They do not enjoy it. Therefore, after the attainment of knowledge, the realization of God, some give up their bodies. But such a thing is rare indeed. You know, it's interesting that Jesus tells this same parable about the fisherman and the fish and this hiding, you know, he also has some of these fish that are trapped in the world, but burrow into the mud. And, you know, I always understood that to be like, when you're in the world, when you're hurting, when your life gets full of pain because of the choices you're making, you're not aware of why or where that pain is coming from. And since you don't know where it's coming from, you don't know how to fix it. And so the world provides you that distraction, you know, that deadening of your awareness through drinking or drugs or partying super hard, or, you know, staying super active all the time, or getting your adrenaline rushes and mountain climbing and whatnot. You know, that we escape our misery, we escape our pain through distraction. And that's what is meant by burrowing our heads into the mud as we're trapped in the net. You know, instead of realizing, oh, look, it's a net and I'm trapped, and let me think of how to get out of this, you know, becoming aware, because if I don't, you know, I'm going to be eaten by the guys in the boat. You know, that you set about doing what is necessary to get out of the net, either by trying to break through it or jumping up and over the edge like some of the free ones. And you know, so watch your mind and watch your life, you know, because the mind is always trying to get you into a state of compromise, especially if you've got some chronic habits that you can't get rid of that are very harmful to you, you know, addictions and whatnot. A lot of times we get tired of trying to overcome, and we begin to make space in our life for those things to exist. Oh, it's not that bad. Oh, it's just a small thing. Oh, it's not that often, you know, like that. Well, God made me this way. You know, all these different ways that the mind tries to make room for its vices, for its wrong thinking. And we have to stay vigilant. That's why we're always trying to bring awareness of the moment, that mindfulness, why we're trying to bring that to the forefront, so that we can continue to see with clarity, and know when we're trying to fool ourselves, know when we're trying to make room or excuses, you know, or if we fall a little bit too much in love with ourselves, you know, that we think, oh, God loves me just the way I am, which is true, but you're still going to suffer for your actions because you still see yourself as the doer. You know, once you know the truth, then what you say is true. God does love you more than anything you could ever do. But until you love God equally, you're going to feel responsible for your actions, and your karma is going to make you suffer, you know, for them, the joys and the suffering, not just the suffering. But of course, Vivekananda says that joy and suffering are the same thing, just two sides of the same coin. So he won't let you out even in that way, right? Because your joy is going to come to an end. That's the problem. That's why they use the word bliss, you know, instead of happiness, because happiness is generated. Happiness is a composition, and everything that's composed must decompose. And so if you go up into an elation, you're going to come down. But bliss has no purpose, no reason. Bliss is. because you are. It's your nature. It's what you are. It doesn't have a cause. And so that bliss of God intoxication doesn't wane. It's always present because it's part and parcel of what you are. And so don't give up. Don't slack and settle for a mostly comfortable life. That's not the way. Stay awake, stay alert, because there's a great dance waiting. The real. I guess that's a weird way of saying it, but there's a real dance waiting for you with the beloved that that shouldn't be missed. And always remind yourself of that. Keep your eyes on the beloved always. The bound creatures entangled in worldliness will not come to their senses at all. They suffer so much misery, so much agony, and they face so many dangers, and yet they will not wake up. The camel loves to eat thorny bushes. Oh man, the number of times I've prayed this to Mother, just, oh my God. The camel loves to eat thorny bushes. The more it eats the thorns, the more blood gushes from its mouth. Still, it must eat thorny plants and will never give them up. The man of worldly nature suffers so much sorrow and affliction, but he forgets it all in a few days and begins his old life all over again. Suppose a man has lost his wife, or she has turned unfaithful. Lo, he turns and marries again. This is that forgetfulness, that losing our awareness, not being present, going in for the distractions. That's the distractions of the world. Are the things that come in and make you forget how things turned out. I always use that. I go back to my old life way back when, and remember those great Friday nights when I'd go out there and really push the edge of the envelope and how, woo, and then I'd wake up late on Saturday morning, my head pounding, half the day gone, already wasted. And I would swear, oh, I'm never going to do that again. That's so stupid. I can't believe, why did I do that? And then the next Friday would come and there I would be, woo, all over again. And, thank God, by the mercy of the beloved, Mother slapped me hard enough to get a little bit of sense, to kind of understand this is not life. This is not fulfillment. This is not what it's for. And so, hold on to that. Stay conscious. Stay true to yourself. Tell yourself the truths about yourself, even when they really sting. When we don't want to face exactly what's going on or admit to what we really feel or what we really think, for shame or whatnot. Hold yourself steady to honesty. That's why Thakur says truth is the austerity of this age. It's staying true in the moment. It's staying clear in the moment. It's always being present. And you can always tell by the relationship with this moment that you have. I mentioned this a week ago, I guess, or two, that your relationship with God is not with this imaginary friend in the sky. Your relationship with God is with this moment. Are you content right now? Are you happy right now? Are you settled right now? All of these things tell you about your knowledge of the divine, because God is present, everywhere present, and perfect in this moment. And if you are in good relationship with that, this moment is perfect for you. There's a contentedness to it. There's a bliss to it, that you can sit there, and enjoy that company with your beloved, as if you've been married to each other for 100 years, just sitting there touching each other's finger across the table, content to say nothing. This is spiritual life. It's learning to live life without needing anything and being content and full in that, to such an extent that you can share that. You can give that to others. Or take the instance of a mother. Her son dies and she suffers such a bitter grief, but after a few days, she forgets all about it. The mother, so overwhelmed with sorrow a few days before, now attends to her toilet and puts on her jewelry. The father becomes bankrupt through the marriage of his daughters, yet he goes on having children year after year. People are ruined by litigation, yet they go to court all the same. There are men who cannot feed the children they have, who cannot clothe them or provide decent shelter for them, and yet they have more children every year. Again, the worldly man is like a snake trying to swallow a mole. The snake can neither swallow the mole nor give it up. The bound soul may have realized that there is no substance in the world, that the world is like a hog plum, only stone and skin, but still he cannot give it up and turn his mind to God. The hog plum is skin and stone. Stone means the pit, and so it's just a skin around the pit, and there's no juice in it. It's like trying to juice a prune. Well, actually, that doesn't make any sense. Juicing a prune, you shouldn't be able to juice a prune, and yet somehow there's prune juice in the store. I don't know. I mean, prunes are dried plums. How do you juice a dried plum? I don't get it. But anyway, obviously it's not a hog plum. So Thakur's trying to get us to understand, look, the world isn't going to give it to you. Nothing outside of yourself can feed you, can fulfill you. You have to find that within. You have to find the divine seed within you. That's the only way. So give up these ideas, when you're sitting there at home, like, oh, I want to go do something. What should I go do? Oh, I don't know. And I don't feel like that. I don't feel like that. That's nonsense. That times when you're sitting there with nothing to do, wondering, how am I going to, tittle myself, with some pleasures or enjoyments here. Which one should I choose? No, my friends, don't. That's very, very painful and very, very dangerous and will take you nowhere. At that moment, sit and look for the joy that's within. Say to yourself, I'm already happy and I'm already content. Why do I not feel it? Why do I not see it? Why do I not understand it? And be quiet and ask Mother to reveal it to you. And oh my God, I know she would be so thrilled. She will be so happy if you were to not go do some entertaining, distracting thing, but rather to sit and ponder her presence. She will touch you. She will give you that light. That's her nature. She can't resist, especially if you choose her above everything else like that in the moment, so honestly and sweetly. So take that chance and take that opportunity. When you have nothing to do, don't sit and ponder what to fill it with. Turn inside for a moment. Touch something deep in there. And you'll find that grace, you'll find that love. I once met a relative of Keshab Sen, 50 years old. He was playing cards as if the time had not yet come for him to think of God. Oh my God, how old was he? 50. All right. Fortunately for me, oh my gosh, I've played cribbage on my computer twice today. So look at this. Look at this, here I'm 8 years older than Keshab, who's an example that made it into the scriptures for the world. And I'm still playing cards, even myself. I smile about it, but I'm letting this hurt a little bit because this is the way, this is the problem. We work ourselves into these things where it's like, what's that? It's just a little thing. But you see, he's talking about having an urgency, that it's the most important thing to us in a day, right? We're told that again and again. We just finished a great story about the poor boy who committed suicide, that this is the purpose of life. And at the end of our day, if someone were to have watched our day, it should have been obvious to them by the way we lived that day that our most important objective was our realization, was our spiritual life. That's a very tall order. And it only comes with constant remembrance, with constant attention, with that mindful living, And of course, it gives much more satisfaction than a card game. As if the time had not yet come for him to think of God. There is another characteristic of the bound soul. If you remove him from his worldly surroundings to a spiritual environment, he will pine away. The worm that grows in filth feels happy there. It thrives in filth. It will die if you put it in the pot of rice. Everyone remained silent. Yeah, everyone would remain silent, reflecting on that. But think of that, that mother says, I talked with someone today, one of you today, about this whole thing, that you can have your realization this very moment if you want it. The Divine Mother says that you can have your realization right now if you want it. And yet we don't have realization, and we think, oh, it's because I haven't done this, or I do this, or I do that. No, it's because you want to do this or that, and you don't want the realization, right? Because there's a deep love in ourselves for ourselves. We love our witticisms. We love our personality, our relationships, our families, our friends, our pastimes, our art. We love these things and we hold on to them. We don't want them to go away because we haven't discerned properly. When you discern properly, you may not stop doing them, but you do them all for very different reasons. It's not what you do in this world, but how you do it. It's being motivated by that pure love within, that you are striving is to remove all of the reasons, other reasons, all of the alternative reasons that we do things and think things and want things. And we try to narrow it down to where there is only one reason that we do things. And that's because of love, because we love them, because we are devoted to the well-being of all beings. So that's our effort in spiritual life, to do for one reason only, and that is pure love. And trying to stop all of the lies of the body and mind to saying that we're doing it for pleasure, for success, for strength, for whatever. Do it for love and love alone. Vijay, what must the bound soul's condition of mind be in order to achieve liberation? Yeah, it's like, wow, God, these things seem so ordinary. Everybody's in this boat, and I can only see gradations from bound to super bound. I can't see any of these free souls or these eternally free souls or an avatar. In my world, there's bound and more bound. He's saying, what in the world what does a mind in that condition, what are we going to do? How do we attain liberation? The master says, he can free himself from attachment to lust and greed if, by the grace of God, he cultivates a spirit of strong renunciation, right? That you pull yourself out and cultivate that sense of renunciation. No, I did that last weekend. It didn't work for me. It doesn't work for me. It has never worked for me. I remember the first time that I thought to myself, gosh, I have never been glad that I did that thing. I've never been glad that I did that thing. And as soon as that thought entered my mind, it helped me so much in realizing what a delusion some of my vices were. It was like, no, I've done that 1,000 times or more in my life. And I can honestly say in hindsight, I have never at any given point been glad that I did that thing. So if there are things in your life that you're attached to that are not serving you as a soul, as the divine being, give them up, cultivate a strong renunciation. How? Through discernment. Through discernment. It's not growing stronger and stronger so that you can resist more and more. That's an egoistic approach. The ego wants that kind of approach. Get in the mind, use the mind, get in the body, use the body. No, it's through education. It's through discernment. By looking closely at the things that we want and asking ourselves as we hold the object of desire in front of our mind's eye, to sit there with Mother or Thakur or Buddha or any of the greats, sit there and have a conversation. Look at your mind in your hand. And when you see a desire there, look at that desire and say, what is it, Mother, that I think I'm going to get in that? Why do I drink? Why do I overeat? Why do I do these things? What am I trying to accomplish? And listen closely to your interior. It will tell you. and manifest to you the delusion that oh, see, you're looking for unity in that. Do you not understand unity lies in God? Oh, you're looking for security in that. You're looking for intimacy in that. You're looking for strength in that. You're looking for immortality in that. You know, all of the qualities of God. You can always know every object of desire that you ever encounter has only been a name of God that has reflected his nature to you for a moment. And instead of knowing that, you thought the object contained a piece of God's nature and that it was the object that would give it to you. But it's not. It's not. That reflection of what's sparkling in that object of desire is your own self, the light of consciousness that comes off of you and reflects in your mind back to you. That's the only thing you can eat in this world, is a reflection of consciousness. And so that's why the scriptures encourage you, don't go out. Don't go out through the senses. They're just feeding you reflections of things, phantoms of things. The reflections of what's being reflected are you in all of your myriad of forms, in all of your myriad of being. All of these reflections of objects in the world are merely you being reflected in your own mind. Don't go running after phantoms. Go for the source. Know who you are so that you don't have to run like a beggar anymore. He can free himself from attachment to lust and greed if, by the grace of God, he cultivates a spirit of strong renunciation. What is this strong renunciation? One who has only a mild spirit of renunciation says, well, everything will happen in the course of time. Let me simply repeat the name of God. But a man possessed of a strong spirit of renunciation feels restless for God, as the mother feels for her own child. A man of strong renunciation seeks nothing but God. He regards the world as a deep well and feels as if he were going to be drowned in it. He looks on his relatives as venomous snakes. He wants to fly away from them. And he does go away. He never thinks, let me first make some arrangement for my family and then I shall think of God. He has great inward resolution. So his life reflects that inner longing for the divine. You can tell by the way he lives and by the way he looks that finding the beloved, finding his nature, is the point of his life. And he won't settle for anything else, anything different. You know, the Thakur talks about the fly versus the bee, right? That a man, a worldly man, can take his enjoyment, from God, oh, that's nice. I had a good meditation. Oh, I like the singing. Oh, I like the kirtan tonight. He can take enjoyment from that. But at the same time, you can find him down at the pub taking his enjoyment there as well. Like a fly, he says a fly will land on a flower, but a fly will also land on a piece of dog poop and be just as happy in either place. So be careful of the mind, be a bee, be satisfied only with the flowers, with the nectar, with that divinity. Have that great inward resolution that you will find God. You will know your nature before this life concludes. And to wake up with that resolution, live that resolution through the day. And at night, think about, were you true to that resolution during the day? And how can you be more true to it tomorrow? Have that kind of seriousness around your spiritual life. Let me tell you a story about strong renunciation. At one time, there was a drought in a certain part of the country. The farmers began to cut long channels to bring water to their fields. One farmer was stubbornly determined. He took a vow. I will not stop digging until this channel is connected my field with the river. He set to work. The time came for his bath, and his wife sent their daughter to him with oil. Father, the girl said, it is already late. Rub your body with oil and take your bath. Go away, thundered the father. I have too much to do now. It was past midday and the farmer was still at work in his field. He didn't even think of his bath. Then his wife came to him and said, "Why haven't you taken your bath, darling?" I put the darling in there. "The food is getting cold. You overdo everything. You can finish the rest tomorrow or even today after dinner." The farmer scolded her furiously and ran at her with the spade in hand, crying, "What? Have you no sense? There's no rain. The crops are dying. What will the children eat? You will starve to death. I have taken a vow to not think of a bath or food today before I bring water to this field." The wife saw his state of mind and ran away in fear. Through a whole day's back-breaking labor, the farmer managed by evening to connect his field with the river. When he sat down and watched the water flowing into his field with a murmuring sound, his mind was filled with peace and with joy. He went home, called his wife, and said to her, Now bring me some oil and prepare me a smoke." With a serene mind, he finished his bath and meal and retired to bed, where he snored to his heart's content. The determination he showed in the example is of strong renunciation, right? To have that kind of focus, just thinking about that day when you've done the work, when you've had realization, and you could just know, wow, the purpose of all of this, of generations of life, has been fulfilled. The work is done, and to sit there in that ecstasy of bliss, knowing there's no limit to it, that there's no end to it. It's done. What an amazing moment. That will be for you. Now, there was another farmer who was also digging a channel to bring water to his field. His wife, too, came to the field and said to him, "Oh, it's very late. Come home. It isn't necessary to overdo things." The farmer didn't protest much, but put aside his spade and said to his wife, "Well, I'll go home since you asked me to." Everybody laughs. That man, he never succeeded in finishing his field. This is the case of mild renunciation. So it's not going to do it for us to be lukewarm in these things. You don't have to be egoistically, crazy about it, but you have to be sternly focused. Your mind has to be always watching, maintaining its clarity, maintaining its center, not forgetting the presence of the beloved, the divine. And it makes it sound like such hard work and such misery in this story. And yet, even to do the practice is a divine joy. You don't have to wait till the end when the gurgling starts to enjoy the presence. That even in the midst of your practice, you can enjoy the presence of God and let that fan your flame of love for God, so that he or she becomes everything that you long for. You've undone the illusion of sense objects, knowing that it's only the reflection of your beloved in them. You've known that, so now you've stopped running after those things. And in those moments of boredom and despair, when you're sitting home alone, you know where to turn. And you're always surprised again at how present God is. And that bliss has been there all day, even though the day was so difficult, and yet you didn't see it and didn't pay attention. But you can. And you must. This is the reality. And in great patience, this divine grace will touch you. It won't make you run the entire length, quite possibly. It might just make you show that you're going to run the entire length. And Mother may slip in with a special moment for you, uncalculated, unexpected. Actually, I think she always comes when it's unexpected. She loves a good surprise. And she knows you love a good surprise. As without strong determination, the farmer cannot bring water to his field, so also without intense yearning, a man cannot realize God. To Vijay, why don't you come here now as frequently as before? calling him out, giving a message like that, and then calling him out, right? It's going to be very effective. He's going to become an overnight saint. You watch, no doubt about it. Vijay, sir, I wish to very much, but I am not free. I have accepted work in the Brahmo Samaj. Master, it is lust and greed, woman and gold, that binds man and robs him of his freedom. It is woman that creates the need for gold. For woman, one man becomes a slave of another and so loses his freedom. Then he cannot act as he likes. You know, Thakur says it's lust and greed is the root of all of this, everything around you. And I remember when I first read that, I thought that was such a shocking thing. I was like, well, doesn't that just denigrate everything? All of this is lust and greed. And yet, when you sit and think about it, why do you like the things you do? Why do you do the things you do? You know, lust and greed are normally quite center to that. The reason that you care about the way that you look, the reason that you bathe, the reason that you do all of these things, so many of them come to lust and greed. And then you look at the reasons that you judge people. So many of those judgments, beauty, is a person beauty or beautiful or ugly? That comes from lust, Is a person strong or weak? That comes from greed. Like all of these things, if you start paying attention, you really see this is true in a worldly way. And that's why the clarion call is there for you to base your heart on love and not on the lust and greed of the body and mind. Find your pure self, the self that's before mind and before body, so that you're not degraded to having to live a life based on lust and greed, that spins only because of desire and not because of love. The priests in the temple of Govindaji at Jaipur were celibates at first, and at that time they had fiery natures. Once the king of Jaipur sent for them, but they didn't obey him. They said to the messenger, "Ask the king to come see us." After consultation, the king and his ministers arranged marriages for them. From then on, the king didn't have to send for them. They would come to him of their own accord and say, "Your Majesty, we've come with our blessings. Here are the sacred flowers from the temple. Deign to accept them." They came to the palace, for now they always wanted money for one thing or another: the building of a house, the rice-taking ceremony of their babies, the rituals connected with the beginning of their children's education. All these things in life that come along, and take our zeal for the divine away, because we get distracted in all of these things. Now, it's interesting, remember, through all of this, it's not what we're doing, it's how we're doing. You can also raise a child in a holy way that will bring about realization. It can be done by seeing the divine in the eyes of that child and knowing that what you love in that child is the presence of God, and not getting confused. And the same with our husbands and wives, boyfriends and whatnot. If we see God in them and make a practice of that, treating them like the divine, even our friends, even our strangers on the street, how you do your job at work, how you view your purpose in the office. We talk about that quite a bit. You're not your job title. That's not why you're there. What you are is love. You are incidentally an accountant, but you love that office, and you're well acquainted with everybody there. You know how their health is. You know how their kids are. You know how their partners are. You're with them, and they turn to you because they know of that caring. They know of that compassion that you have. That's why you go to work, not to do the books, not to clear the tables, not to sweep the floor. You go there to love. This is why we're born. This is our nature. And so we have to work at remembering this and getting ourselves back to sobriety, back to a clarity of understanding, so that life can become rich sooner, deeper sooner, fulfilling sooner, that we don't have to wait. There's the story of the 1,200 Nedas and 1,300 Nedis. Virabhadra, the son of Nityananda Goswami, had 1,300 shaven-headed disciples. They attained great spiritual power. That alarmed their teacher. My disciples have acquired great spiritual powers, thought Virabhadra. Whatever they say to people will come to pass. Wherever they go, they may create alarming situations, for people offending them unwittingly will come to grief. Thinking thus, Virabhadra one day called them to him and said, "See me after performing your daily devotions on the bank of the Ganges." These disciples had such a high spiritual nature that while meditating, they could go into samadhi and be unaware of the river water flowing over their head during the flood tide. Then the ebb tide would come and they would still remain absorbed in meditation. Wow, that's some focus right there. You know, I unfortunately didn't have that level of concentration. I remember going at Bellarmont. I was there during sannyas in 2012, and on the backside of Swami Vivekananda's temple, there's a wonderful veranda that overlooks the Ganges River as it flows by the temple. And from that veranda, you can look over and see the Dakshineshwar temple where Thakur was. And so I was so excited. I was like, what a great place to meditate. I'll go up there and I'm going to do some meditation. So I went up there to sit for the evening meditation. And these helicopter-sized mosquitoes just suddenly swooped in and were like buzzing and swarming all around my head. And I was just like so uncomfortable. I couldn't do it. And I looked over and like 5 other brahmacharis were sitting there just deep in their meditation, just not caring at all about like the 15 mosquitoes that were buzzing around their heads and sitting on their shoulders. They were totally right there, just focused and sitting in solitude with the divine. And I was sitting there, pulling my chadar, putting it over my head, swatting my ears, just a constant struggle. So this is what the master is saying not to do. That we have to be able to go inside and let go of the outside, let go of this outside world that's constantly tugging at our senses, and stop swatting the mosquitoes trying to make the physical life perfect, because it can't be. The mosquitoes also need a perfect day, and that involves eating you. So what can you do? You have to sit there and come to peace. You have to you have to come to peace. Now, this is going to sound ridiculous because I eventually got there by the end of my 6 months living there. And the way that I did it, this is hilarious, is that I would greet the mosquitoes as Thakur. I would hear them buzzing. And instead of getting annoyed and immediately trying to beat them away, I would really try to be like, "Welcome, Thakur. I'm glad that I can be an offering to you," and to kind of just do those things. Because anything that you can do, anything that you can do to bring your mind to the beloved is the thing to do, as ridiculous as it sounds and as it seems. And even while I was doing it, I was chuckling at times, like, oh my goodness, has it come to this? And yet in that, I found some peace, in that I found some connection, and was able eventually to learn to meditate like my brothers were able to do seemingly so naturally on the side of the river there. So Virabhadra now he's got these great disciples who have learned to sit there and meditate even as the tide comes up over their heads and back down again. And he says now 100 of these disciples had anticipated what their teacher would ask of them. Lest they should have to disobey his injunctions, they had quickly disappeared from the place where he had summoned them. So they did not go to Virabhadra with the others. The remaining 1,200 disciples went to the teacher after finishing their meditation. Virabhadra said to them, "These 1,300 nuns will serve you. I ask you to marry them." "As you please, revered sir," they said, "but 100 of us have gone away. Therefore, each of these 1,200 disciples had a wife. Consequently, they all lost their spiritual power. Their austerities did not have their original fire. The company of woman robbed them of their spirituality because it destroyed their freedom, just entangled them in the world." And this, we don't have to make this a gender issue. It's not that. He's talking to a bunch of men, so he's talking about it in those terms. He's talking to these men in the room. but it's the world, you know. For men, for women it's men, for gay men it's men, for lesbians it's women, for straight men it's women. It's the world, right? The world entangles us, and we lend ourselves out to the obligations, you know. It's like the difference between living here in this room once a month and living in a monastery for me is becoming very real. You know, in the monastery, I didn't have to come up with rent. You know, I didn't have to think about things and wonder about those things. They were all taken care of. But the world is like that. But you shouldn't win. You shouldn't lose. It shouldn't win over you. You should hold on to your principles and insist on making it work according to your principles, and not making your principles commoditized to match the world. You make the world match your principles, right? And you discipline yourself, you know, so that that $800 rent doesn't become a $1,200 rent or an $1,800 rent or a $3,000 mortgage. You know, draw your line and maintain your line and keep your eyes on what is important. Don't give yourself an obligation to maintaining things that will not last, that will not be faithful to you, that will not see you through, you know. So always discern, always discriminate, always look at what you're doing, and always consider how it's going to affect your spiritual life. You know, is this going to entangle me more? Is this going to require more of me? You know, I remember Swami Prabhutananda, we had a young Asian guy that had been coming to the temple, and every time he would visit, he would bring an orchid as an offering, which seems like a really nice thing, you know, but he came often. And at some point we had almost 20 orchid plants sitting in the front room in the monastery in San Francisco. And this young man showed up one day with one more orchid, and Swami answered the door. And oh my goodness, I thought the temple was going to fall on that young man. Swami was like, "What is this? Do you think of nothing? You bring these here every day. Do you think that we are gardeners here, that we should spend the rest of our life taking care of these orchids?" He says, "Do not bring another thing to this place." And I was in the background like, goodness. But you see, he understood quite clearly. And actually, he thought that way all the time. Like before he would make a commitment to take something or to do something or to start something, he would consider, how will this entangle us? How will this be maintained? How will we be able to take care of this? You know, and if he didn't think we could do it or should do it, he said no, with no trouble at all. Absolutely not. You know? So be the same in your life. You know, before you put that one more thing on your credit card, think, this is going to take time from your life. This is going to take money from your pocket. This is going to increase your obligations to the world. Is it worth it? Should I do this? You know, think about when you replace your shoes. Do I really need them? Because this is going to do all the same to you. Be sensitive to the way the world pulls you in. Become aware of how the world pulls you in, and nurture that renunciation, nurture that self-control, nurture that discernment, so that you don't get caught, so that you don't end up a 99-year-old woman with 300 orchid plants that are all going to die 3 days after you pass. You know? So face the truth boldly, learn its lessons, and be free. Be free. You yourself perceive how far you have gone down by being a servant of others. Again, one finds that people with many university degrees, scholars with their vast English education, accept service under their English masters and are daily trampled under their boots. The one cause of all this is lust, is woman. They have married and they have set up an affair with their wives and children. Now they cannot go back, much as they would like to. Hence, all of these insults and humiliations, all of this suffering from slavery. Once a man realizes God through intense dispassion, he is no longer attached to lust and greed. Even if he must lead the life of a householder, he is free from fear and free from the attachment to woman. Suppose there are two magnets, one big and the other one small. Which one will attract the iron? The big one, of course. God is the big magnet. Compared to him, this world, woman, is a small one. What can woman, and he puts it in quotes, what can woman do? Right? Because it's not, again, need we say it again? This is not an affront to women. It's an affront to men and their lack of self-control. And so understand that, for a room full of women, mother would talk to them about their husbands and say the same thing. So be cautious in what you connect yourself to in this world, and understand its obligations and its requirements of you. And be careful to calculate on whether you can afford that, whether it's worth that cost to you spiritually. Sir, shall we hate women then? A great question, because he's really laying into it. So this man asked him, sure, shall we hate women then? Master, he who has realized God does not look upon woman with the eye of lust, so he is not afraid of her. He perceives clearly that women are but so many aspects of the Divine Mother. He worships them all as the mother herself. You see, so the weakness is not in the women. The problem is not in the women. It's the problem in the eyes of the men looking at the women. And so we should understand that. We shouldn't become afraid of the world or at enemy with the world. We're seeing that quite a bit in our politics these days. So you can learn from that as you watch it happen. If you externalize your own weaknesses and blame it on others, then they become your enemy. And you think that you get this self-righteous idea that by destroying them, you help yourself. But that's not the case. The battle is within you. The battle is within you. If you are looking at others with lust in your eye, it's not the problem with the way they dress, and it's not the problem with the way they are. It's very much with your own problem of having not yet fully discerned that, not having yet fully worked through your delusion and your renunciation of those things, right? So fight the battle always within through this discernment, because if you see it properly, then it's not a problem. He tells the man, no, you don't hate these women. You don't turn on them. What you do is you learn to see the divine in them. And that divine you can love and serve to your heart's delight. You will know then that it's not the person, it's the divine light within that person. And so that's the cure for all of this. Whatever your vices are, you have to learn to look through them so you don't need them anymore. You look through them to see what they were reflecting to you. What quality of your own were they reflecting back to you? And then you go inside to find that. You go inside to find that satisfaction, that fulfillment, and not outside. Come here now and then. I like to see you very much, he said to Vijay. Vijay, I have to do my various duties in the Brahmo Samaj. That is why I can't always come here. But I shall visit you whenever I find it possible. Master to Vijay, the task of a religious teacher is indeed difficult. One cannot teach men without a direct command from God. People won't listen to you if you teach without such authority. Such teaching has no force behind it. One must first of all attain God through spiritual discipline or some other means. Thus, armed with the authority from God, one can deliver lectures. After receiving the command from God, one can be a teacher and give lectures anywhere. He who receives authority from God can also receive power from him. One only then can he perform the difficult task of a teacher. An insignificant tenant was once engaged in a lawsuit with a big landlord. People realized that there was a powerful man behind the tenant. Perhaps another big landlord was directing the case from behind. Man is an insignificant creature. He cannot fulfill the difficult task of a teacher without receiving power direct from God, right? We can't do any of these things in our life We can't overcome our lust. We can't overcome our greed. We can't overcome our selfishness without knowing the beloved behind us, without knowing the divine mother within us. The task can't be done for any other reason or by any other means. The ego is not willing. It will work hard up until the point that it realizes that it's being its own undoing, and then it will turn on you. You know, it will take away your taste for practice. It will take away your taste for prayer. It will take away your desire to sit in solitude and in the company of the beloved. Right? So touch the divine within. Know the mother. You know, through faith, assume her presence in you if you haven't found it yet, if you haven't touched her yet. Assume her presence and assume it fully and deeply. Don't go looking. Assume she's there. Even when you sit for a dry meditation and it seems like there's nothing in the room but a hot day and a lot of responsibilities, assume her presence. Assume it to the point that you enjoy it, that you enjoy her, even though you know it's pure assumption on your part. And Mother will not resist that. She will not. She definitely will not let that go unanswered. So do that. Find Mother, find the beloved, and that becomes the cause for everything in your spiritual life. That becomes your motivation for everything. That's why grace is so important. It's grace that teaches us of unconditioned love. And that unconditioned love is what fuels our growth, our longing, our love. It's what motivates and empowers our action, our words, our compassion, and fulfills our life because we're living in harmony with what we are. So this is the way. Vijay, don't the teachings, what time is it getting to be? Oh my goodness, it's 8:13. All right, we'll stop there for the evening. Does anybody have a question or a?
Yes, Swami.
Yes, please.
I go by what you said regarding karma theory. That's really how I feel. But I have no idea what to do with that part in what you read, saying everything that you've done in your previous lives has amounted to this. Gospel is gospel truth, but still I don't know what this means. It doesn't make sense to me. What do I do with it?
Okay, I'm not sure I followed you. What do you do with your karma?
No, what do you do with that sentence in the gospel which says you have done so much in your previous births?
Right.
So I don't even believe in previous births.
Okay.
And I don't know what to do with it.
Well, you don't have to do anything with it.
With that sentence, to understand.
It's relevant in that sentence because the guy just asked that question. He's like, look, I haven't done any practice at all. And here you've appeared to me and you've provided all of these necessary things for a worship. So he needed to know. He's asking her, why did this happen? And then she's telling him, she's making him aware of something he didn't know and wasn't aware of. But up until that moment, it was not important in his life. And it's not important for you either. What's important is this moment. That's the only important thing ever, is this moment.
Yeah. So
because
that's the most important thing. Then you need to invest in this moment in such a way that those future births will make sense the way this man's, and that is not how I live. I don't know how to live like that.
Marvelous. Now you've had something revealed to you.
No.
Perfect. Yes, you're aware. I promise you, Rangu, that awareness will bear fruit. Your life will change because your discontent in not doing these things will grow now. Your awareness of not doing these things has already been manifested to you. And I can hear in your voice already your dissatisfaction with that knowledge. And that's beautiful. That is as it could be. No words are necessary.
I have done nothing in this life it is dissatisfying. but
Yes.
that whatever I have today came from previous lives, and what I do now will affect future lives. I can't wrap my mind around that.
You don't have to. In this moment, do what is right. That's the
Yes.
whole message. There is no past. The past remains only as a construct in your mind. So let it go. Take just this moment and
See,
love
we
the
are agreeing in everything you're saying, but I still don't get that sentence that she says
then
that.
that sentence is not for you then. Don't you worry. Don't you trouble yourself with that sentence. It's not going to make any difference to your realization. That sentence is unimportant. What's important is here and now. And here and now, do the right thing.
Yeah.
And don't worry about the imagined lives before us. We have not been given that knowledge. We have not been given that. At some point you may be. At some point, Mother may take the blinder off. You may know that you were Cleopatra's left-hand woman, in your last life. You may come to know that. And at that point, it's important. Until then, it's not important. Until then, you are what you are in this moment. And in this moment, life is never, strong renunciation is not to say, I'm never going to eat chocolate cake again for the rest of my life. What do you know of the rest of your life? What do you know of it? That's not yours to give even. What you do is you don't eat chocolate cake right now. And you don't eat chocolate cake right now. And you don't eat chocolate cake right now. Or right now. Or right now. And lo and behold, 10 years have passed and you have not had chocolate cake. But you never renounced it for more than the moment. Otherwise, the mind makes big deals of these things. The ego gets overwhelmed with these things. Oh my God, you mean for the rest of my life, I can't have a glass of wine? My God, I just don't know if I can ever do that. And then you sit up and think about how impossible it's going to be for you and what an immense thing this is. And before long, you're sitting in the back of the closet with your clothes pulled over your head, having your secret glass of wine so your husband doesn't know. It's like, that's not the way to do this. It's only in the moment that this happens, and your karma is created in this moment. Now, your karma will affect this moment in that if you've been slugging on the jug for a long time, and this moment now you're going to try and stop, it may take you a little bit longer than just this one moment of realization. It might take some discernment and some steady renunciation to make that happen. But with patience and the communion and friendship of the Divine Mother, it will come to pass, and you will win against that vice. It's a promise. It's what's coming. It's your perfection is inevitable. Your realization is inevitable. So you will win. You will win. But in this moment, you do your very best. If you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, stop it. And if you aren't doing something you should be doing, do it. That's the depth of it. That's all. With those two sentences, you will realize God.